What is up, guys? I am back with another live stream. We actually have someone in the, we'll say, fishing industry world finally coming on. A bunch of the people have been coming on lately have been just anglers and friends. But if you guys follow the Jigs and Bigs podcast or American Vet Fishing, Joe, that was on earlier, this is the fish or die we were talking about on that live stream. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. Taylor Magditch, owner of Fish or Die. My kid's walking out the room now. I thought he'd say hi. Started the company a few years back. Got some awesome, crazy, wicked designs, and it's been successful for us thus far. We're making our way into the big screen, if you will, and our name's getting out there, which is great. So we're do as many podcasts as I can to talk about the company. Yeah. So as soon as you reached out, I was like, absolutely.
Yeah, so I will say there's a few baits. I actually have baits coming Friday.
From me?
So, yeah. I actually ordered the Ajax and the Patriot. They've been hitting on jigs lately, so I wanted, a black jig. And not a lot of companies make like the black that you guys have is a little different. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it looks more matte than not as shiny.
Yeah. Correct.
And I like more matted colors. Like, I actually use a lot of Max Scent stuff, not even because I care about the scent, but because of the matte finish that they have. Yeah. And that Ajax, like that, I use a Kitech Easy Shiner a lot, and that is very in that vein, but a different profile, a different shape. It's going to be something that those fish are eating, those like young of the year, bait right now. They're starting to eat up, and that's going to be something that my next tournament is on Lake Bombazine here in Vermont, and that's a smallmouth lake, and that's going to be a bait that they're going to destroy. So,
is there gobies in there?
There isn't any gobies in Vermont technically. Champlain is getting them. They don't want to admit that they're there, but they're coming through the St. Lawrence, and they've worked their way into Champlain.
Yeah.
I am not against, like, there's this whole big uproar, like the state of New York panicked, and they're like freaking out because they're like, oh my God, this is going to ruin our fishery. And I'm like, talk to the guys at Lake St. Clair about what the gobies did to their lake. Like, that's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, the revenue that that they have brought in since, just from the smallmouth anglers going up there. And I mean, we go to St. Lawrence every year because of, the smallmouth that come out of there. So that's. But no.
So I have to ask, how do you get into, like, because bait making, like, I pour my own, but it's just mostly because I don't want to buy worms when I can make my own. And honestly, I got into bait making mostly because I was running into problems where I couldn't get colors.
Yeah.
Stuff was selling out, and I was like, you know what, I'll just make my own, and then I don't have to count on the local sporting goods store to have it. But how do you go from, like, I'm assuming you went from like hobbyist to like, okay, we're going to run this as a business? Is that kind of how it went?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I'm still full-time law enforcement right now. Okay. But I started this company with the hopes of leaving. That was my exit plan. So it started out originally business minded. However, you're never going to be successful just going crazy right off the get-go. Right. So I had to, I'm sure you do the do-it molds or somewhat similar. Yep. So that's how I started. I was watching this guy, Chris Jones, do some stuff on YouTube, and I'm like, that's crazy. He does a lot of open pouring swim bait stuff. So once we kind of gained a decent following and some loyal guys that were putting our stuff out there, getting pictures for us and content and whatnot, and we saw an upside profit. Obviously, you need that in a business. I decided to start generating our own molds. So that's when it kind of switched, and we went full throttle in that regard. So now everything that we make, minus two things, is completely from my brain. I, drew it out on a piece of paper and ended up getting it into a CAD and sent it to the manufacturer. So
that's cool. That's the whole thing about pouring plastics, I think, is like the fun part, is like making weird colors, or like I played around with I've actually had pretty good success with it too. Is like doing like completely clear bait with just glitter,
Mm-hmm.
like that transparent look, but then have like a color, like basically like a mixed color. Like I did a couple where it was like a blue and green fleck that was just completely clear plastisol with just glitter. Now,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, it was a pain to get it to like stay because you had to constantly stir the crap out of it. Otherwise, you'd get like half of the bait would be glitter and half wouldn't because the glitter was like
Yep.
floating while you're pouring. But
And of course,
that,
any type of remilk gets a little yellowish.
it's bad. And I'm not using proper glitter either. I'm going to like a craft store and just buying like,
Yeah, the Hobby
stuff
Lobby.
that, yeah, I'm not. I mean, I do have some of like actual like do it stuff and the stuff that's really heat sensitive, but some of the stuff I can't even like remount more than a couple of times because it starts to like break down and then
Yeah,
it starts to make a weird color and a weird smell. So,
yeah. That I mean, we to avoid that. I mean, it's unavoidable, really, with certain
yeah,
colors. So to somewhat adapt to that, I just started generating different colors with it. So, like for
yeah,
example, our silver shiner. I mean, you can imagine very silver um, shiner looking with a pearlescent powder in it.
yeah.
Um, Over time, with the amount of remelt, starts to get a little yellowish green. So then a ton of black, and we created a new color.
Yep.
So this I'll show you real quick. This is our warbird, but that's the silver shiner with the black
Okay. Yeah.
with the gold eyes. So that's we call that the midnight ride. Hopefully you saw good. I don't know.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I can definitely. I actually put a link in the description, guys. If you want to go check out the baits, they have pretty good pictures on there to see the colors and everything.
And we got a
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
We have a new we have a design. I don't know if you saw my post the other day, but literally a first in the industry. Um, it's going to be pretty wild. I didn't know how it was going to turn out with the CAD and then putting it into an aluminum mold. It turned out better than expected in the water as far as the action. Due to that, I reached out to a few people because once it's released, I mean, there's zero chance that I'll keep up with demand. So I reached out to a bigger company, and they are interested in seeing it. I'll say that. So we sent them some stuff, and hopefully we can do some type of collaborative
Yeah.
to get it out to the market. So
Now, how long does it? That's actually one of the questions that they just asked in the chat too. Is like from the napkin drawing to the actual mold. Is there like a huge lead time? Is it? Yeah, it's.
Yeah, a few months. Can I see the chat or no?
You should be able to. You might have to turn your phone sideways, or sometimes you have to pop it up. This was the message. Was the actual question was?
Oh, comments. There we go.
Yeah. But how long of a process is it from original design to production? And I'm assuming you also probably like draw it. Now that's the other question. I guess the other question to add to that is, have you had like some drawings that you then got molds and then were like, do you just go right to an aluminum mold or do you do like a clay mold to test the prototype first or do you?
No, so we go right to aluminum. If anything, just like this last one, we'll do a single injection.
Okay.
So one cavity.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like this one is obviously a first prototype till he gets that. And then we go from there. I mean, the most I've ever done, I think, was 3 prototypes until we landed on a final.
That's not too bad because I've heard of like, I mean, even pros and other companies have had like, hundreds of iterations on baits, but.
Oh yeah, that's.
But you also like now, do you have like, is there a different consistency plastisol that you do for like the
Different.
Ajax versus a Patriot or like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you want a different action because one's going to swim, one's going to, be
Sure.
more solid.
Yeah. So on the website next to each bait, I put firmness, so it'll go 1 to 4.
Okay.
So that's how if people are looking, that's how they can determine. But for example, like the Ajax is in between our Sherman or Patriot, for example, and our Gadsden, which is our finesse drop shot bait.
So, and you guys also do scents too, right? Like you have your own custom scents with that stuff too.
Yes. Yep.
Now, are you like doing like a, because I played around with this and I've epically failed. I literally tried adding like power bait to plastisol, and that is a
Like the
science
dough.
experiment. The actual gel.
Mm.
So I tried mixing. I thought, oh, I'm just gonna make my own power bait, right? And I put the gel in the warm plastisol right before I shot it. It kind of
Okay.
turns into like that school project volcano. It starts to like expand because it creates a huge air, like it starts to boil the power bait scent. But
I
do you
got
guys like infuse that in the bait, or do you like put the baits in the scent after to absorb into the bait?
Yeah, so we don't put it in the plastisol. We we shoot it. We
Yeah.
let it cure for at least a day, and then we soak it
And
in
then
it.
you treat it. Okay.
Yeah, so that way it absorbs.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I always kind of wondered how that all worked because I mean you can technically put it in the plastisol, but
You
it
can, yeah,
screws with the color too. Like it does do some weird stuff. Like
absolutely, yeah,
I've definitely done like weird, I've tried everything from like garlic powder to like just kind of playing with stuff, just to see what it would do. And
yeah.
it basically,
Salt's the same way. I don't put salt
yep,
in any of my stuff, and people early on were like, "Can you put salt in it?" I said, "I can. I can't guarantee the colors because I'm not going to go through
yeah.
$50 worth of separate plastisol to try and you know
No, and it's crazy. It's crazy how much like even a little bit of salt will. And sometimes I like using salt because, like I said, I like using a matted color, and that salt will matte out some of the shine in a bait. But
hmm
it also, like you said, it creates an inconsistency because you can't. I don't care how. I mean, you're professional, so you're definitely better at it than me. But it's still hard to keep that salt consistently mixed in that plastisol at all times. Like it doesn't, it
yeah,
settles the first time, the first shot's probably okay. And then after that, it sinks to the bottom and you got to mix the crap out of it,
yeah,
reheat it. You constantly, and then ultimately you're burning the salt because you're trying to reheat it and keep it high up.
yeah. And as you're
So,
stirring, you're generating more air bubbles. It's a constant battle. It's
yeah.
just, I mean, don't get me wrong. Salt has a role for sure, and
Yeah.
if it's the obviously bigger companies with a Zor machine or high production molds where you're making 50 baits at a time, and you
Right.
have a constant spinner going in a big drum, obviously doable. But with hand injection, it's a headache for sure.
Now, you guys are just, like you said, you're going to be collaborating with a company, but I'm assuming other than that, it's just you and just you, or is it, do you have a small team, or do you have a whole
No,
like
it's
building, or
no, it's me and my wife. So
wow, okay.
yeah, so I'm injecting everything, and then for example, like the Warbird I did earlier today. So they're curing upstairs on the sheet, and she'll be like tonight when the kids go to bed, she'll be gluing the 3D eyes. So
Crazy.
it's a family assembly line.
That's, and it's like, what's crazy to me is I've seen your stuff on like Tackle Warehouse. So like you, I mean, I'm assuming you're doing some decent volume at time because if people
Oh yeah,
discover it, or they go through like Tackle Warehouses, people are
yeah,
bound to just stumble across it and buy it just because you guys have some like cool, you like that's actually what I got into when I heard. So I heard about you guys basically through Joe.
hmm
And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, I like that. Like there's just little touches. Like you're still, I mean, a craw's a craw, but the Patriot's not the same thing.
yep,
It's a little different. Like it's, the Ajax is a swim bait, but it's a Scoby swim bait, and it's not. I'm just gonna throw a name out there. It's not like the Z-Man swim
no,
bait. It's different. Like it's not an actual, like it has a different look to it. It has a different, like I've seen the action
yes,
of it and stuff like that. It's different. It's not.
yeah. Aesthetically is one thing, and then just actions another. Like especially with, I mean, that's one of the baits I'm most proud of, just because it's done so well.
Yeah.
It's been received amazingly up north in those waters. And one of the biggest thing is like you'll see it when it comes to you, but if you lay it flat, that tail's elevated. So
Yep.
that was like a key thing for me is those high current situations. If you have a heavy ball head jig on the front, football head,
Yep.
um, Beast Coast sled head is amazing. I highly recommend that if guys are trying out the Ajax. But if that's sitting on the bottom, that tail's constantly moving.
Yeah.
So, the less action is the better at sometimes when they're finicky. So that was one thing that I loved when designing that bait.
Yeah, what attracted me to that bait was like I said, I typically one of my favorite baits is Kitech Easy Shiner or a small paddle tail, right? So you can just swim it, simple. But that bait looks like not only can I do that, but the way it's designed and shaped, you could drop shot it. You could do a lot of other stuff with it. So it becomes a more versatile bait. The size of it, the profile of it, and the way it's designed. Like I was looking at it, I was like, I've seen videos of guys that were drop shotting it versus swimming it and they were doing a bunch of different stuff on it. And I was like, okay, that's because, and that's one thing that I always talk about, like in my videos and stuff, is fish don't know what they're not supposed to eat. So yeah, technically there's not gobies in the water, but at the same time, when I'm fishing a tournament against 7 other teams, they're throwing a paddle tail. I'm throwing that. That looks different. So they're not going to identify that as danger as much as they are the Kitech Easy Shiner that everybody else is throwing. And I love throwing something different because I want to try to stay in the same vein, but throwing a different profile, sometimes a slightly different color is the difference because the fish haven't seen 10,000 of them. And this time of year, especially up here, because this is crunch time for us. We're getting to the point where our temperatures up here dropped. Like our water temps dropped like 8 or 10 degrees last week.
Oh, wow.
We went from like basically summer. I'm in Vermont.
No, I mean the water temp.
So when we were on Memphremagog on Sunday, water temps were down to like 68.
Wow.
And and like when I fished the weekend before locally around here, they were mid 70s.
Yeah, that's where we were the other week.
And it's dropping down. Like the weather we're getting to the point where it's hoodie weather. We've already gone directly into fall. We just kind of dropped into a cold front, basically. It just never went away. But we're going to hit that wintertime feed up earlier than we normally do. Usually I'm hoping it hits right around the time that either I'm doing that tournament, because I actually have 2 weekends in a row. So I'm doing a tournament on I think it's the 7th or 8th of October, whatever that Sunday is. And then the following weekend, we're going to Cayuga to do the Jigs and Bigs camp out deal. So I'll be on Cayuga for 4 days.
Oh, nice.
So that's another reason why I bought those baits.
Tournament?
I am not, because I won't be around at that point. But it's not going to be that weekend. But I would, actually. That's one tournament that I definitely looked into. But
yeah, it's going to be good. We got about half the field already, so. And that was a lot of free stuff for guys going to that, and Ajax one of them. That's going to be. I wanted to do like since we're the primary sponsor, each angler, both the boater and the co, are going to get something at least.
Yeah.
From each company, so that's cool.
Yeah, I'm doing kayak onlys right now. I do have the bass boat that I'm actually probably going to end up selling. I'm at the point now where I would rather have the peace of mind of just getting up and going and not worrying whether my batteries were charged the night before or my gas tank's full or my motor's working. Or I'm going to be upgrading my kayak next year. I'm definitely going to get a bigger kayak and probably it sounds stupid because I'm saying all that, and then I'm probably going to end up throwing like a Newport or a Bigsby motor on it. But I want to be able to like only use that for tournaments and then just not have it for, pedal any other time. So
yeah. What brand you thinking?
I'm kind of heart set on the natives, only because of the size. So like the Titan X is the price point too. Like, because I like the Jackson Nar is a good boat too, but it's another almost big more than the native. I have an Old Town now, and I love the kayak itself. The problem with the Old Town is, and for me, it's a space issue. They didn't really build it with a lot of room, and they haven't really redesigned any of their newer models are the same. I don't know why they would, because their whole design is stupid good and stable. And I mean, we were in 30-mile-an-hour sustained wind gusts and rain in that tournament on Memphremagog, and we were fine. Like wasn't even worried about it, but
I know Ike Nelly's he has that Hobie one, but
yeah.
I want to say it was native that I saw him buy down at iCast. Maybe it was because of his son or something like that, but I think it was a native. But that thing was huge. It was freaking decked out.
The Titan is huge, and it's not a kayak. It's essentially a glorified John boat, But that's what I like about it is I want it to be essentially a mini bass boat, but then it's gonna come down to I'm going to trade shows this year, and because I'm pro staff with FX and Reaction, so I'm gonna end up hitting a bunch of trade shows. And there's always, and I'm sure you've done them, like there's always those trade show deals, and sometimes you can get yourself into a pretty good price point because they're trying to just sell them. So I say I want a native Titan, and I wouldn't mind a Hobie. I like backpedaling. I like fishing the slop. Like I get off-roading with it. So like, if I'm fishing a frog or something, I don't want to have to remember to reach down and pull a lever to go into reverse or turn, my rudder. I want to be able to just instinctually pedal backwards because there's been so many times where I've hooked a fish and then just backpedaled and dragged it out and been able to get it, where if I had to remember to reach down to change the direction of my drive, I don't think I would have the presence of mind to do that.
Yeah. And you said Reaction. Is that the braid company?
Yep. So they do braid. It's actually funny. I got hooked up with them because I ended up having them on as a guest, but I didn't even realize that a lot of the products that I was fishing were theirs because I was buying a lot of stuff on Amazon and I wasn't really paying attention to the brand name. I was like, oh, this looks like a good hook, and I would buy it. And then I would buy this or that. And then I realized like I was buying their jigs. I was buying their weedless wacky hooks already. I was using their braid, and then I ended up getting an opportunity to be on their pro staff. And I was like, yeah, because I'm already using 3 or 4 of your products. And honestly, I kind of felt like I could help them because I was personally buying their stuff and not realizing it was them. Like I just thought it was some generic Walmart type brand that was on Amazon.
I didn't know they made all that. I bought their, not a lot of companies, even the big ones, make 8-pound braid.
No.
So I got Reaction high vis 8-pound braid, and that's what I was doing up at St. Lawrence because they're so pressured. So it was 8-pound braid to 6-pound fluoro is what I was running my drop shot.
What's the price point of their braid is good. And very also good. What I like about it is you can buy big spools too. Like you can get 100, 200, 300, 500. So you don't, and it's really not like what's crazy is a 500-yard spool from Reaction costs you like what a 150 a Power Pro costs you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, granted, it's definitely different braid, and there's some differences in the quality of it. But as far as I'm concerned, all the big fish I've caught on my spinning rod this year have been on 8-10 pound high vis Reaction tackle braid. Almost all my reels have been switched over. One question we did have I saw earlier, and just want to make sure we get into is who comes up with the colors? Is it a collaboration? Is it something that you just Frankenstein something up?
Yeah. I kind of just think to myself, Google some stuff and think about what would fit. So for like all our straight white color, for example, is called King George's Wig.
Gotcha.
It's
yep.
What's another good one? Agent 711s are black and blue. That's the code name for General Washington. His flag was,
gotcha,
his color. So kind of, I don't know, I'm OCD with some stuff. So I kind of look at the color. I'm like, what would fit well with that? And I run it by a few people, and they're like, oh, that sounds cool. I try to keep it in, the theme, obviously. So.
Right. Do you have like a huge team of people that you send stuff to test, or do you just kind of wing it, throw the baits out, and see if people will buy the colors, or how do you do that?
Well, we do all the standards, just like every other company. That your green pumpkins, green pumpkin purple, and whatnot. But for the special stuff, I'll send it out, and especially with the baits like this new one that we're working on, I'm going to send that out to probably 4 or 5 people in different parts of different areas throughout the East and South to try and pinpoint some stuff. I already have like 4 alterations that I think I'm going to make on it, including the size. So,
Yeah, and that's got to be the hardest part is like as a bait person, like, you know, somebody like me, I'm just pouring for myself. I'm I pour some weird colors, but at the end of the day, it's like I end up using three colors. Like that's kind of how it works. But you
Yeah.
have to take into account like the South versus, because that's one thing that's actually partly why I started my YouTube channel, because I was watching a lot of stuff and they're always like, "Oh, you need to use shad colors." Well, I live in Vermont. We don't have shad. They
Mhm.
don't exist. The only thing we even have in the shad species is alewives, and those are an invasive, and they're only in Champlain. That's it. There is no shad up here. It's perch, bluegill. That's your standard forage up here. You get there. We have trout because a lot of lakes they stock trout in, and the bass just pulverize the stock trout because they aren't used to being, you know,
Oh yeah.
hunted. So they don't know enough to stay away from the bass, and the bass just destroy them. But we don't have like your traditional, like we're throwing more yellow perch colors. We're throwing bluegill colored stuff, or your standard green pumpkins, black blues.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of where I go. Which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, sexy shad works just about every freaking lake in the country, but we don't have those species, so we're not matching the hatch with that color. So,
Yeah.
but like for you, you're trying to sell to the country. You're not just trying to sell to, you know, the Northeast. So you have to kind of take into account what colors are going to be popular in California. Not to mention smallmouth being, you're not smallmouth centric, but you guys do sell some baits that are clearly designed
I
for
would say we are
smallmouth.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like your
Yeah.
your baits
We
are
definitely do.
definitely, yeah, you're definitely in that vein. And smallmouth eat some weird colors. Like sometimes they, you
Those
know,
hot pink.
yeah, hot pink and freaking
Yeah.
purples, and they like those bright colors, man. So
Yeah. And we had a kid. He graduated now. I can't even think of the college. Somewhere down south near Louisiana, I want to say. But he's like, you guys should make a June bug red. And I had regular June bug because obviously that's big down south,
right.
Florida, Okeechobee, um, just like Okeechobee crawl. But you know, that's I came up with the Philadelphia color, and that's our June bug red. I'll show you. But little things like that, like we sponsored him at the time.
Okay, yeah, I like that a lot actually. I throw a lot of Junebug. That's actually a color I throw a lot up here.
Oh, is it?
Um, it's just it's a that's one of those things that it's just a contrast thing. Everybody else is throwing black and blue. I'm throwing a Junebug. It's, to be
You
honest,
mix your
in the
dates with your trailer color
I
wise.
so I will mix and match. So sometimes, like sometimes I'll be throwing like a black blue skirt with a black blue trailer, and then sometimes I'll throw a green pumpkin trailer on there. So I've
Yeah,
gone, you know, like I will sometimes even throw almost like a bronzy yellowish with the black blue, just because a lot of the water I fish is really dirty anyways. So I throw a lot of black mostly just because of the contrast, because they see it and it's there. It
yeah.
doesn't really just anything distinctive. But I'm not a big like, I will match the colors, but I will play around with, you know, I've thrown, you know, red on black blue, or I've thrown bubblegum pink on black blue. Like I don't really think that
Sometimes
I
the
honestly think
contrast
sometimes
is
it makes a difference.
yeah. Sometimes the contrast definitely makes them hit. At least I've noticed, but that's surprising that your water's dirty. Thinking more north in my mind, I'm thinking like it's just clear as you go up.
Yeah, and you would think that, but what's funny is like Lake Champlain's a perfect example. Lake Champlain is chocolate milk most of the year. Now, when you see Bassmasters, they're fishing up north,
Hmm.
and the lake flows north. So you get sometimes where that area, it's weird how the lake breaks down, but the more north you go on Champlain, the more rock bottom you get. The more south you go, it's more marshy. So you
Gotcha.
get kind of two different worlds. I'm more in the southern end, but I actually personally like fishing ponds more.
Do you?
I hate the cluster that happens at the big boat ramps. So I don't really. I'm more likely to catch an assault charge than I am a fish at some boat ramps, because I can't deal with all the jet skis and the pontoons, and just
Oh yeah.
I'm there to get away from people and relax and unwind, and I don't want to have to deal with 17 people that have never launched a boat in their life trying to figure out how to launch a boat. So I go to like a lot of small ponds, and honestly, I find that, as weird as it is, the bigger fish that I catch are in these 200, 300 acre ponds because they're not getting beat up by bass fishermen.
Yeah.
Places that you can't launch a Phoenix in because you'll be ripping the bottom of your boat out because it's so shallow all the way out to the ramp, and stuff like that. So, and I also, when I do fish pressured lakes, that's where like the June bug and the weird colors come in, is especially tournaments. You go down a bank, and like a lot of our tournaments we do in small lakes, 300-400 acre ponds. So like it ends up fishing small enough that you're coming right behind somebody almost always. So if you're throwing, like I'll throw like that Berkeley Max scent, their June bug, because it's like really purple. Like that's not traditional June bug. So I'll throw that because I know everybody in front of me is probably throwing green pumpkin, black, blue, watermelon. They're throwing one of those traditional colors. So when I come through with a purple one, they haven't seen that color yet. They've seen everything else. So they're not as, in my mind, that's all it is. Like, I don't really think they care what color it is. It's just, have they been educated to that color being danger, or have they been educated to that profile of that bait being danger? Which is also why I geek out when I find companies like what you guys have, because you're not making the stupid dice K cube thing, but you're making something that looks like a wacky rig, but it's a little bit different. Something that looks like a craw, but it's a little bit different. It's just got a little touch to it that makes it not perform the same way in the water, which does make it look different to the bass. But you guys aren't going like so extreme that I'm like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to buy that. You guys are basically doing stuff that, like, if I saw it in the tackle store, I'd be like, yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah. And I think, that speaks volumes for the company. I think just in general, for like, I brought up the Warbird before. Everyone throws a fluke. So, that is our version of a fluke. It has those angled pectoral fins. It's got a vertical tail, so it's versatile. You can use it as a chatterbait trailer.
Yep.
Absolutely killer. And I posted earlier, we're doing the bigger ones will now have a belly slot, so it's a little bit easier to rip through fishing weightless or whatnot. But little things like that, like little tweaks off of the typical Americana. You don't want to go crazy and do things you don't want to do things, in my opinion, just to do them. There's got to be a purpose, and it's got to catch fish. It can't just catch the eyes of people walking down the aisle. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's honestly, again, that's another reason why I started my channel, because I was seeing there's two different levels of YouTube fishing. There's the guys, and honestly, I'm sure they're probably going to be mad at me if they ever actually take the time to watch any of my videos, but they won't. But like Tactical Bassin is a perfect example, where those guys will promote a bait, and then magically that's what's on sale at Tackle Warehouse that week. Like, you see some stuff that you're like, and Mike Iaconelli is a perfect example. Like, he's an excellent fisherman. I'll never take anything away from him. And he's an excellent salesman, but he's a salesman, and you can hear it. Like, you can hear him drinking the Berkeley Kool-Aid every time he does a video. And I hate the fact that so many young anglers, I've seen him at trade shows. I've seen it so many times. I've seen guys that clearly have only fished Senkos their whole life buying 9-inch glide baits because Milliken fishes them. And it's like, I hate seeing guys that are like just poached and targeted for, I'll be honest, there's about 75 colors of worms that I will never, and I have a wall. I mean, you can't see it, but like, I've done the stupid investment in plastics, but I'm trying to save my viewers from making the mistakes that I've made, because until you know why you're buying that color, don't buy that weird color. Buy your blacks, blues, your green pumpkins, get comfortable fishing the bait, and then learn why you need a darker black or a little bit of a two-tone thing, because there's so many companies that are trying to sell you colors that probably aren't going to work. They're just, they look flashy to you. It's like frogs. My perfect example of this is hollow belly frogs. The top of that frog looks ultra realistic, and the fish will never see it.
Correct.
So there's no reason. The bottom of that frog is black. The top of it is 3D printed toad.
Yep.
They don't see the top of it. That's for me. That's for me to go, oh, look at that frog. It looks so cool. But that has nothing to do with whether it catches fish.
We still put them in our cart though, don't we?
And we still do. I've got Gambler. I just picked up 3 or 4 more Spro Frogs for that reason. It's
Yep. It's the way of the industry, unfortunately. The one thing that I will say, because you mentioned the highlights or laminates, if you will, that's one thing that I don't do. I don't know if you do because you make your own, but do you have a laminating block?
So yes, and I hate it. Absolutely hate it. So I will make 2-color baits, but I cut them in half and then mold them again. So I take like a Senko and I go right down the seam and I cut it. And then I put it back in the mold and then I re-pour another one.
Oh,
because I found that when I tried to use a laminating block, it would blend and it would not. I want it to be 2 colors. Like I don't want, and it was sometimes would like I wouldn't pour it fast enough on one side or the other, or I wouldn't have the temperatures right, and then it would just become a weird version of purple instead of like the color I wanted.
Yeah.
And the only real true laminate I do anymore is, I mean, I guess it might be a cool color you could probably try in one of your baits. Is I actually took Junebug, like a traditional Junebug color, and Black Blue Fleck, and laminate them. Because I'm like, both of these colors work really well. They're kind of the same contrast. They're basically a dark color in the water. So I've done that with worms and swim baits, and I've had pretty good success with it. But it was just kind of like I was like, and like I said, I literally cut them in half, and then just like I would like make a bunch and then cut them in half, and then pour.
Well, the reason I stopped, I probably did it for like a month early on when I first. Before I even started the business, when I was just playing around, and the one thing I noticed is obviously it's hand injection, it's human error. So whether it's air bubbles or something like that, I can't just cut all that up then and remelt it.
Right, you can't. It's done.
It's such a hassle. So I was losing so much plastisol and just
the first part of the bait ends up like this weird hybrid color of the two.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, sometimes, and that's why I started cutting them, because I was like, at least I can control. And it actually kind of worked out cool, because you would get, I wasn't ever good at cutting them straight, but it almost worked because you got kind of a little bit of there was like some differences. Because one of the things that I've always said is like, have you ever seen a fish that was perfectly symmetrical?
Yeah.
You don't. So like, if I'm making my bait that's not exactly symmetrical, it's going to actually, in my mind, look more natural. So Michael Bradley was asking, what size hook would you recommend for the 5.5 Warbird? Like a 4/0 or?
Yeah, I would go 3 or 4, depending on the brand. The one I had on yesterday, it's on the Instagram. Today I posted on Instagram. I want to say that's a 3/0 Mustad.
Okay.
So yeah, depending on the brand. But if you have hooks laying around, see what works first before you know what I mean? Before you hooks with
that's one thing, working with Reaction has been good for me because at least they're consistent. But yeah, sometimes an owner hook is not the same size as a Gamakatsu, is not the same size as a Mustad sometimes. 3/0 is not always 3/0. Like it is different.
And depending on the keeper too, the screw lock, or I know what does Mustad have sometimes? The black long ones on their KBD.
Yep.
You just like push it in.
Yep.
So yeah, see whatever you have. And I personally do the 3/0 just to give it some space. If you go 4/0, some of the brands are going to end up getting into that first rib. So keep an eye out for that, but good question.
Yeah, that's one of the things too, is with the nuances of bait. Sometimes the hook size makes a difference too, because it affects the action, because you're getting too far into the back of the bait, which isn't able to move. Or
and I know Joe, the way he rigs them is nose hooking. He likes to fish them nose hooked and twitch them. So
that's not a bad idea, actually. I almost bought some of those, but I haven't had a ton of success with like fluke style baits. But I was looking at those too, because I do fish a lot of chatterbait, and that would definitely be a solid chatterbait trailer as well.
Oh yeah, for chatterbait trailer, get the 4-inch for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, 4-inch is ideal, and I drop shot that all the time. The 4-inch, just nose hooking.
I could see that. Yep.
Yeah, I smashed them up at the St. Lawrence with that. It was our old 6-star color, which was our alewife color. But
gotcha. Yeah, we should probably wrap it up. I know you had to have an early day tomorrow, but what we're gonna do, guys, is we'll make a plan that once he releases that bait, maybe we'll have him come back on and talk about it and do a little preview of it. And
yeah,
once it's an officially released, we can kind of schedule it. I kind of hit him up last minute, guys. We've been trying to coordinate a day, and he just happened to have some time available. So, going to be a kind of a quick podcast today. I've actually got 6 videos I need to edit, so probably do me some good to get working on that too.
It's the worst part, man. I hate editing.
See, I actually enjoy it. I don't mind the editing stuff. I started my YouTube journey started way back before YouTube was even a thing. I used to play Xbox, and I used to make like montage videos of me and my buddies' gameplays at night, and I was doing it like VCR rigged through a DVD burner, then burn it to a DVD, rip it to a computer, and edit it. Back in Windows XP days. So I've been doing editing a long time, and I've got a pretty good system to it. One thing I have learned with video editing is I've learned cheat codes. When you catch a fish, stop the camera.
Yeah.
Catch a fish, hold it up, stop the camera. So then when I go to cut all my videos, I just play the last 30 seconds of every video.
Yep.
If I do a talking segment, I'll say keep it or don't use this.
Smart.
So the last 30 seconds of every video is just me yelling, this is junk, don't use it. Or this is good, use this as a talking point. And then I don't have to like watch my whole day again. I just go to the last 30 seconds holding a fish, keep, throw away. And then I have only a little bit of video left. It makes it a lot better. But unfortunately, I went fishing. I'm doing 3 days a week now because I'm off on Fridays. So I have like 6 days worth of footage that I've got to get cut up.
I have my little guy, my oldest, I should say, with me at the pool the other day doing some underwater footage. It was freezing.
Dude, I can imagine that's actually the cool. I did a little bit with like the Go Fish Cam, playing around with some baits for eBay, and but dude, underwater stuff's fun to make, but it's hard to do because you have to get it just right, or the light's awful, or if you're not in a pool. Like I was trying to do it in a lake because I didn't have access to a pool.
I didn't know anybody. Chris too. He's a good dude. He's a
Chris is. He will say he's a partner of the show. It's not really a sponsor. It's not really how that works. But I've known Chris for quite a while, and I actually went to the New England show with Chris and helped him in his booth and stuff. And
awesome. You ever do, or I should say, ever consider coming down to Harrisburg for the Great American Outdoor Show?
I would, yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to. I got kind of the bug doing the trade show stuff.
It's
I really like doing it. It's fun. It's for the content side. It's really cool networking. It's really fun to walk around and like just talk to people and just meet people that make products and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's a real long show. That's like 9 days.
It's not that far from me being in Vermont that it would be worth to come down. I would just have to like coordinate a, hotel, and I wouldn't drive down for the day and then drive home. That would be brutal.
Yeah, that would. But yeah, I met Chris through Joe and them after I did their podcast, and he mentioned him. So we that's where we stayed when we went up to St. Lawrence. He's been
trying to get me to come up there for like 2 years and always ends up falling through. He's always like, dude, you need to come up. We need to fish. And I'm like, I try and do, but every time something comes up.
Yeah, he helped us get into Thousand Island Bait Store up there. He kept pushing it, and once we were up there, I went there, brought in some stuff, showed them, and they put in an order. So guys in that area can definitely head in there. They have a bar.
That your baits in that river are kind of meant to be, man. There's a lot of good quality fish in there, and I will get up there. I don't know if it'll be this year, but it's definitely going to be. I'm definitely going next year now because I just barely got on 410s at work, so now I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off.
Nice.
So now it won't be as big a deal to just head up Thursday night, get a 3-day weekend in, and then come home. Because if I go up there, I want to make sure I get enough time to be able to get the experience. Because the St. Lawrence is one of those like special fisheries and
phenomenal. They're not going to the elites.
Yeah, I gotta. I'm actually happy they're not hitting Champlain next year either. They're skipping Champlain too.
St. Clair they're going to.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
they're going to St. Clair instead, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't want to keep you too much longer here. But yeah, guys, we'll definitely get him back on. Like I said, I always like to try to. I try to muscle my way into if they got new products coming on, have them come on and showcase them because I find it fun when new stuff's coming out and get to be the person that gets to show it to everybody. So
if we weren't in talks with someone else, I would definitely be giving you guys a sneak peek. But definitely stay tuned. Hopefully, within a month or two, we'll know something.
Cool. All right, guys. We're gonna just actually end the live stream right here because, like I said, I got some editing to do. But if you guys haven't already, in the description down below, I have his website linked. Go check him out. Pick up some baits. Let me know how you guys like them, and we will get him back soon, and you guys will be able to tell him how you did with them. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys all next Tuesday.